still dehydrated. Little chocolate water, Henny got me calling. Hello, operator.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Nothing Explained. I'm your host, Sampson. I am joined by Ryan Fu.
What's up?
What is up? Is that way over there? Let's fix that. I don't like you looking at me.
I have to.
You're like, hey, and then I feel like you're not looking at me.
Here, yeah, there we go. What's up? Hey, how's it going?
Is that?
I feel like you. I feel like you nailed
thumbs
it.
Up, left or right?
I feel like you nailed it.
What's up?
It's a good camera shot.
Oh, it's in my camera shot? Whatever.
Oh, he doesn't care.
It's fine.
Let Miles do his thing.
I just don't want you looking like way over there on the right. That's not
What
cool.
is Nothing Explained, Sampson?
Nothing Explained is a podcast that I do here on the WeAreDenver podcast network. Find us on YouTube. You probably already did because you're listening.
Yeah.
So Nothing Explained is my attempt to explain everything. And given that you can't explain nothing.
No, you cannot.
Yeah, you can't prove a negative. So the only option would be to disprove the positive, right? But that's not possible either. So I pretty much just made it Nothing Explained so that I don't have to, I just wanted it out. I just want to talk in a microphone. I don't want to be held liable or accountable in any way, shape, or form. Speaking of which, I do not give medical advice, legal advice, or financial advice.
Yeah.
Because advice is a legal term and you have to have a license to give advice. And when you have accepted the liability of giving advice, you can get sued for giving bad advice and having people take it. So,
Well, it's a good thing you don't give advice then, Sampson.
yeah, make suggestions and opinions and, do what you want.
Yeah. So what are you telling us your opinion on today?
Well, today I was the bulk of it, I was going to just get into water and bottled water and kind of like touch on the whole being lawyered to death, which is kind of a theme I like to weave in here. And, I will do a whole podcast on it.
Death by lawyer.
But I did want to, I've kind of been starting off the last couple podcasts with kind of like some stuff that's going on and things. And I don't really want to cover the news per se. I'm definitely not like a news podcast and I don't want to get into what I really think is going on or any of that stuff. I'm more interested in like introductory information, and like,
Yeah.
I want to give people an excuse to think that maybe they should be out doing some digging rather than just like the surface cursory analysis.
Or just taking what
situations.
someone else says about digging to be true.
Yeah, do your own digging. So.
Yeah.
But I did want to, one of my favorite podcast guys said this week that every day there's some new news item that erases the blockbuster news item from the day before. And every day is like that. And I think you would agree with that, would you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
otherwise
totally.
it's not news.
So I just wanted to cover out a couple of those, so like if I ever come back and listen to this podcast, I can remember where we were.
Where are we today? What's the blockbuster
This last
item?
week has basically been like the Trump dossier, which
Oh,
was
the Russia
P-gate.
investigation.
Yeah, the Russian thing.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out it was paid for by the DNC,
Mm-hmm.
and then it was at least partially refunded by the FBI when it got turned over because everyone assumed that it was probably real. And it spawned most of the investigations that have been making headline news into the Trump administration.
But the
for so
DNC
long.
has had its own drama this week, too.
Yeah, lots and lots of drama.
Yeah.
So, well, and then Hillary Clinton said she didn't know anything about the dossier until it was published, and now she's defending the purchasing of it as opposition research, which is fine. Do what you want. It seems a little.
This is America.
Yeah.
We can spy on each other if we want.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is that it looks like that dossier, which none of the allegations in it have been proven to any extent whatsoever, but that dossier looks like it was what was approved. It was the reason that there was approvals made into wiretapping Trump Tower. And there is no evidence that Trump himself was wiretapped at this point, but everyone he works with was wiretapped.
I'm shaking. My whole world is shaking. I don't know where I am.
And most of the sources of that information, there was one guy, I think his name was Christopher Steele, in Britain. He's like an ex-MI6 agent. Okay. That was kind of the source of that. But all of the like links and everything all lead back to CrowdStrike and Fusion GPS, which are very much DNC entities. So it all all roads lead right back to Rome in that case. And then to throw another match, a gallon of gasoline on that fire, the fire that is politics, Donna Brazile released a book this week in which she stated that she discovered that Hillary Clinton was in charge of all the DNC finances and was like who was making all of the decisions in the DNC long before she won the nomination, air quotes on one. And she called Bernie to say that directly to him, that that he got sunk, which was kind of interesting. And then today, it's being said, like another excerpt from the book where she says that when Seth Rich was murdered, she then feared for her own life. Which makes you wonder.
Yeah.
What is some guy who got robbed and nothing stolen from him have to do with Donna Brazil? That seems a little odd for her to say, don't you think? I don't know. It's like rats on a sinking ship, buddy. Rats on a sinking ship. So
I would just stay out of all of it if I were somewhere in Washington at this point. Be like, you know what? I quit. Don't worry about my opinions anymore. I'm out.
That reminds me of one of my favorite movies of all time, That Thing You Do. Tom Hanks plays the producer of a 50s kind of boy band kind of thing, and
I'm so uncultured.
The lead singer is the brains in the group, and Tom Hanks walks into the recording studio and he's like, I want something popping, something snapping. And he's like, I got something for you. He's like, I quit. I quit. And he walks out. I would definitely be quitting right now if I was involved with the DNC, but I'm not, because I saw that coming years ago. 11 or 12, 13, 14 Saudi royals have been arrested. Have you seen this?
No.
So the new crown prince, I saw someone called
of Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, the clown prince,
oh.
which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
Has, in an anti-corruption probe, has basically arrested like all of his opposition in the country. So it's either
that's convenient.
some sort of coup, anti-coup, or whatever, but it includes the 6th richest person in the world, which I will subnote, if some list or something lists someone as the richest person in the world, that probably means they're like the 12th instead of the 6th.
Yeah, there's plenty of people who aren't listed.
Yeah, the Trillionaires Club doesn't get listed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and most people's, if you're one of the richest people in the world, it's based on your assets, and your assets are only published if you own publicly traded companies. Private companies, private holdings do not ever make the list. So the richest people in the world are not the richest people in the world. That is key. Manafort and his ilk were served indictments.
They were.
And I really enjoy that because my entire Facebook feed is just full of like pro-Democrat people, because who would be pro-Democrat at this point? Who would be pro-anything at this point in that realm? But they're just like, oh my God, we're one step closer to Trump. But you go and you read the indictments, and the person who ran the the Republican campaign, Paul Manafort, has now been indicted, and all roads there point towards the person who ran the DNC campaign as the next person on the chopping block, because they both ran lobbying firms. They were lobbying pro-Russia in the whole Ukrainian thing that went down a couple years ago.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting to see that all of these kinds of things are all the way across the aisle. It's not one certain place that they're happening in.
Everyone's like, oh, I'm so happy for... I'm like, dude, the whole thing is just crumbling and you're cheering for one side. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
One side of a building doesn't crumble when the foundation is shaky.
And then other news, and this is all this week, people. If you're tuned in like years and you're looking back in time, this is all in 1 week. We have the sexual misconduct avalanche.
Oh my goodness,
currently assaulting all industries, with the Hollywood being kind of like the prime mover there. Yeah. The big one this week was Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, and House of Cards got canceled.
Yep, and his youth outreach. He has like a...
That's not a good look.
he's got like a training for young actors kind of.
Yeah.
What do you call that? Like some sort of club or whatever. Anyway,
pedo camp.
Yeah, well, that's the potential. We don't want to make allegations.
Alleged.
We don't know.
No one knows anything.
But his accusers are now starting to come out of the woodworks. There was a really interesting one actually he had someone who had a relationship many years ago when he was 14 and Spacey was 25.
That was
and there was a very long, like very open post.
Yeah, Alan something, I can't remember his name, but yeah, he's the first one to come out about it. And then since then, several castmates have come out and said, yes, he is kind of aggressive and is that way with everybody, and that's not okay. But it is interesting that it is noted also that before the Harvey Weinstein thing, that it was okay, that was the culture. And I know a couple of people who are pretty professional actors and some dancers in high-level scenes, and they say it is pretty grimy.
Yeah, pay to play. If you don't have money, then sex is money.
Then you pay with your flesh.
Yeah, that is,
age-old tale.
Yeah, I don't imagine... people who are surprised at that are either not paying attention or they're feigning ignorance, feigning surprise.
I think some people...
that is the industry.
Some people do believe that the industry isn't that corrupt. Some people believe that... Some people maybe out of sort of optimism want to believe that there are parts of certain industries like that are corrupt, but the truth is that lots of arts industries with all that money have been very corrupt in that way for a long time, especially if you're a woman or especially if you're a homosexual man. Those seem to be places where those corruptions sort of manifest most, which is unfortunate. Mm-hmm. Very unfortunate.
Yeah, well, I mean, the internet's kind of brought back this culture of scarlet letter.
Yeah.
Which is opening this whole door for everything,
yeah.
which is really interesting. But previously, essentially, like now you can make a Twitter post and there might be legal consequences to that, but that's still on the record and can't be erased. And that leaves the door open for someone else to say, oh, hey, me too, hashtag me too.
Yeah, yeah.
And then so all these things start stacking up and you suddenly see the avalanche, and you're like, well, maybe we should be taking this seriously. Whereas before, when the person who's making the allegations, i.e. the victim, makes some sort of allegation, you can squash that. It's not going to hit the major media because one of the guys who's running the major media has probably done something very similar, and he sees that come across his desk, and he's like, we should probably squash that in the bud. I don't want that coming back to bite me, which is exactly what happened with Harvey Weinstein because NBC turned down...
Several people did.
Yeah, they squashed the story, and then the New York Times decided that they were going to run it, and that's what started the whole thing. So... That's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, we should be running all kinds of stories, and people shouldn't be squashing them for certain political interests. But I would also imagine that since the advent of the media, that's been the case. Yeah. Because, I mean, if you're someone who helps to spread information, you're also someone who's a gatekeeper of what information gets spread. So there's already naturally some implicitness in, what you spread and why and to whose interest, or if a story comes to your desk that's against the interest of someone that is in your interest, then maybe you don't run it, all kinds of things like that.
And in industries like Hollywood, it's basically a meat grinder, and when they say, well, if you don't want to go down on me for this part, there's 10 people behind you and one of them will, and like there is this, it is these people like the star worship kind of aspects, or it's this cult of popularity, which is breeding these people who will do anything to be famous. And then people in the position of power get away with it because there was not this scarlet letter thing, and it just creates this, well, I got away with it the last 3 times, I'm going to get away with it the next 3 times, And it had been like an avalanche in the behind the scenes of like them succeeding, and now finally we're getting some like real blow up, which is...
I think it's a good thing.
I think it's a great thing.
I think it's also like just a metaphor for the crumbling of the toxic masculine. The human masculine is starting to fail, and something is cracking and coming through the seams. What the divine masculine will end up looking like, I think in a lot of spiritual circles, people talk about the divine feminine often. And we have an idea of what the divine feminine looks like, but still I think the human consciousness is not very familiar with what the divine masculine looks like.
I mean, that was the show you didn't make it for when Amanda was here, and I called it the divine feminine, and I woke up the next morning to the Me Too blowing up, which I thought was like really interesting. I had another synchronicity with my next podcast. I can't remember what it was, but she was like, well, I didn't want to talk about any of the Harvey Weinstein stuff. And I was like, but I see those things as directly related. You went to this major ceremony in Mexico and had this very feminine experience. And I think that that's directly related. And you could see the look in her eyes being like, oh shit, I suppose that's possible. Because I think she was very much there for her, in a way, which is an important experience too. But I'm like, as a group, that's a very powerful thing. Like 700 women, reigniting this ancient sacred flame. And suddenly we have, and that's happening all over the world. Like this isn't just like these people doing it. Those things, indigenous and sacred things, are coming back all over the world. I know like 45 people who, including you, who got together. That's just the ones I know, but got together for Dia de los Muertos and had ceremony and stuff, and so like I know all those things are coming back, and I think they're directly interlinked.
Yeah, lots of different things. Even you could say Halloween is even a simple and basic example of how people can come together to celebrate things in a more sacred way and have respect for different kinds of duality, whether it's masculine, feminine, life and death, whatever it ends up being.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so it's the apocalypse, it's the great unveiling, and in a very literal sense of that, also JFK files released.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
that did happen.
That was interesting. Trump had promised
it's heavily redacted though.
Yeah, and there was very interesting that Trump was like, I'm releasing everything that the CIA is letting me release, and then the rest of them were released heavily redacted last There was another 127 or something that were missing, and they
So
came
there were
out a
2
couple
drops.
more days ago.
Gotcha.
But the consequences of that has basically been like all of our conspiracy theories, which weren't even really theories at this point, have all basically been confirmed.
Which are like, give us a couple.
Well, that there's a second shooter. So like the big revelations, and I should have done a better job reviewing to actually talk about this, but the big ones was like some guy is listed in the files as having worked at like an auto plant, and the car showed up and they made him replace the windshield because there was a bullet hole in the windshield that clearly showed that it was shot from the front and not the back. And that's in the documents, but like him as a witness, like he came forward and said, hey, the car showed up, and they erased the evidence and that was all covered up. It looks like Oswald was a CIA asset, and then they're kind of pressing hard against that, saying that he was actually a KGB asset, and that's why he was talking to the CIA. But either way, he was an asset. And all evidence points to basically Allen Dulles, head of the CIA, with help from quite a few people, including George Bush Sr. We're all behind it. And the funny thing, you always hear, like any good researcher, like if you wanna know, like probably the best resource for JFK is Jim Marrs. And if you ask him who killed JFK, he would say it would be a shorter list if we did who didn't kill JFK, because he had enemies in the mob, he had enemies in the intelligence agency. He said literally, I'm going to smash the CIA into 1,000 pieces. And he was dead like 2 weeks later.
Yeah, you can't, yeah.
It was like a month or something.
Yeah.
So, and just like Martin Luther King said, the most dangerous entity on the entire planet is the most dangerous and violent entity on the entire planet is the United States.
of
And he
America.
died a year later to the day of saying that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the system and the establishment is a powerful thing.
Yep. They have entrenched interests. It's in their best interest to save themselves. Let's see.
Well, that's some news.
Yeah, I mean, we're not even done. This is 1 week.
So what is that, like 2 days or 7?
Yeah, a robot was given Saudi citizenship.
Okay.
A female robot in Saudi Arabia. I mean, I don't know if she identified. I don't know how they identify
female
as female,
presenting
but
robot.
Yeah, it's a female presenting. She's presenting. Even further off the beaten path, there are now. I haven't verified this, so don't quote me. I highly recommend you go search this out. The number of witnesses to the Vegas shooting who were saying that there were multiple shooters in Vegas who are now dead is up to 7.
Wow.
Yeah. And the first one, she was like sick. So it was like, okay, well, she was sick. I guess you just die spontaneously 7 days later for whatever reason. But they just keep dropping like flies. So that's weird. And there's also a weird tie-in. One of the guys who was arrested in Saudi Arabia, one of the main players in Saudi Arabia, owned the top half of the Mandalay Bay building. So who knows what's up there. The number of planets in the habitable zone in their respective star system is now estimated to outnumber the number of stars in galaxies, which means that the average star is going to have more than one habitable planet. And habitable meaning just in the right temperature zone. That doesn't mean like oxygen content
Water
or anything
and
like
whatnot,
that. Yeah. But just like the right distance from its prospective star.
Right.
And I thought there was one more.
So that means that statistically the chance of there being life in space is increased pretty significantly.
Yeah, it's been infinite for a while. It's now more infinite.
Yeah, little more infinite than yesterday.
Yeah, 1 in 1. The chances of there being life out there is 1 in 1. And it's, we don't need to go in that. Read my podcast on aliens. Hey, so let's get into it. But anyway, as a reminder, it's 2/22. Bing. That was a week. That's not even close to all the thing that happened.
So we're going to forget about all that shit next week.
Yeah, totally.
Because some other shit's going to come out.
I love reality. I'm so excited.
It's so weird, and it makes me concerned for the human consciousness that like this shit just comes up and goes down. I mean, it's good we're doing work. Some of it like is definitely work that's going to affect everybody, like the domestic abuse stuff and general assault stuff. And I think that's good. It makes everyone reflect a little bit about it. Yeah. Some of it I feel like it's just really pulls people into a vortex that they're never going to get out of, or further entrenches them into a position, which is what I would advise is the opposite of what you should do. If like news comes out and it's like, this thing is happening, like I can prove this thing, like just let that go and accept that it could be entirely different next week. Because everything is changing all the time. Yeah, and I do want to like in the kind of assault and the scandals and stuff, you know, if you're a person who is in a situation that's not a good situation, you know, speak up, fight for your right, fight for your freedom. Talk to your friends. That'd be number one.
You're talking about the splinter or whatever in the shoulder, you know, like you really, I call it ripping the Band-Aid off. You know, you have to do it. Stand up for yourself. You know, there's no better time than now.
And it's hard. And
it's super hard.
And often I think a lot of this Peace Jam event that I just came from with Asetu Shango, who I'm sure will be on the podcast at some point. She's a poet in the slam community. And she spoke about a domestic violence or domestic abuse, sort of like verbal and emotional abuse situation she was in, and got ostracized for it. And she was talking a lot about it. And I think the best advice you could ever give to a victim or a potential victim is just talk to your friends about this kind of stuff. If something is concerning you, just talk to your peers and people around you to see what they're observing and how they experience these other people, because oftentimes it's hard to really, when you're really close to someone all the time, certain things get normalized. And the nice thing about having a diversity of perspective, no matter what, is that they can tell you what is or isn't normal from their own objective opinion. So.
And a lot of people in these positions are also part of the abuse is this controlled social environment, and you'll find like they don't have a lot of friends and stuff. And if that's you,
right.
You know, start by journaling.
Right.
You know? Share somewhere, and you know, share your desire to have an open forum for that to be shared, you know, because like that's the thing, put your intentions down on paper and that will definitely open a door. I guarantee you it will.
Yeah. I would also say like generally it's just the importance of having a community. And if you're with someone that's afraid of you reaching outside of the community of your relationship, that's not a good sign. One of the big indicators of abuse is that one partner really doesn't want the other partner hanging out with certain friends or being with certain people. And if you love somebody, you let them hang out with whoever the fuck they are going to hang out with. And if they're going to talk shit about you, they're going to talk shit about you. You got nothing to be afraid of. But if that person's preventing you from going out into your community, then that's no-go. You don't want that anyway. You should have friends of variety and capacities for so many different reasons. Nature loves diversity. So love your friends, love your partners, let them hang out with people. It's good for everyone.
Yeah, totally. Have separate social lives. That's a relationship tip from Ryan and I here. Okay, so let's get into the meat of things. I want to talk about water and bottled water.
So I guess it's not really meat. Let's get into the hydrogen of things. The dihydrogen monoxide, right?
Yeah, right. So the reason that I decided this would be a decent thing to talk about is I saw a little news clipping this week. The township of Osceola in Michigan, a city of 2,000 people, is $30,000 in debt thanks to a legal battle against Nestle, the largest bottled water bottler on the planet.
Ooh, they bottled them some water.
Yeah, serious bottled water. 1.1 million gallons. 1.1 million gallons.
1 million.
1.1 million gallons in Michigan alone.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they have 40 bottling plants in the United States in 10 states.
How much water do we drink as a nation, I wonder?
Do I have 60 million bottles per day? That's 60. Just Nestle. Just Nestle does 60 million bottles per day. But I think that's U.S. Yeah.
It's a lot of bottles. Like, it's a lot of water. But I also think, like, damn, it's a lot of plastic.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous amount of plastic.
Yeah, and it's like totally unnecessary.
We'll get into that. But anyway, sign of the times. So this township is $30,000 in debt from a legal battle with this major company. And so they've turned to crowdsourcing their legal fees. So there is now it's Some of Us, SUM of Us. It's a crowdsourcing site.
Yeah.
It's like Kickstarter or whatever, or GoFundMe. But like, what does that say? A town of 2,000 people can't afford a legal battle against
a giant conglomerate that just takes water from them.
Yeah,
that's fucking nuts. Raw.
Yeah, and in their case, they don't. I didn't see any evidence of like real like environmental devastation, or they're not suffering from a lack of water. But Nestle wants to put in a pumping plant so they can jump it up from like 270 barrels an hour to 400 barrels an hour.
How much money do they pay? Do you know?
Do they pay?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on the agreement with the place. So in Michigan, they're paying 5 cents a gallon.
Damn, that's very cheap.
Yeah, but that's normal tap fees. But a lot of places they just pay like basically a license fee to pump, which in some places like $200 a year. So they don't really pay for the water, like in a very literal sense.
Yeah.
So, and in the case like if it's bottled in Michigan where they're paying 5 cents a gallon, then a 12-ounce bottle, let's say 16 to make the math easy, their profit is about 15 cents on that. And then there's 4 and 4, 16 in a gallon, right? So 15 times 6, 30 times 3, 90 cents, almost $1 profit per gallon.
On a 5-cent gallon.
Yeah.
So 95 cents of profit or $1 of profit on a 5-cent gallon?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah,
80 cents profit.
80 cents profit, okay.
But then they're selling a $1.50 bottle to, or you're buying $1.50, right?
Yeah.
67 cents, it goes to the retailer, the store,
Yeah.
you know? 15 cents is actual profit of that bottle to the store, and then everything else is most of the price is transportation, and a good chunk is the plastic bottle.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, and the reason that's ridiculous is that while there are places where you can't drink the tap water, that's really not true for just about the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And the idea that bottled water is somehow better for you is not true at all. And most of the time it is straight tap water. It might be filtered, so it might be slightly better.
Well, even if it's in a plastic bottle, you leave it in the sunlight too long, it's not very good for you.
Yeah, there's an expiration date on your water bottle. Not because water goes bad, but because the plastic bottle goes bad. So that's that. Pen drop.
Don't drink plastic.
Yeah, that's really bad for you. The one big one you've probably heard of is BPA, which is a plastic softening
chemical
molecule or whatever, and it doesn't stick around inside the plastic. It slowly off gases, and it's an estrogen mimicker, so it's what's turning the frogs gay.
That's the Alex Jones quote.
Yeah.
They're turning the frogs gay. He really goes ham on that. He really wants those frogs to be straight.
Speaking of Alex Jones, have I talked to you about that? There's a conspiracy theory that he is, oh God, the comedian, the really awesome comedian who like did mushrooms and was just always like hitting with the truth. Bill Hicks.
No, Bill Hicks. What? No.
Yeah, there's like a mini documentary that Bill Hicks got tired of his job and faked his own death and became Alex Jones.
That's so funny.
And there's like I haven't like looked it up, but one of my favorite guys talked a lot about it, and like he's like, go look at the pictures, dude. It's really entertaining.
It's entertaining. I find conspiracy stories mostly very entertaining.
Yeah. That's what I think. It's great.
Quite the entertainment value. Unlike Kayla Marquis, we do it for the entertainment.
Yeah, I'm laughing at the potential of it, and if it turned out to be true, still laughing.
Yeah,
still funny.
Still funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but BPA definitely has an impact on your health.
Yeah. And
studies have been done and shit, so go look that up.
Yeah, there's no question that BPA is bad, and it's banned in a lot of places. And the problem with BPA is that there are 10 chemicals just like it lined up right behind it, and only the first one's illegal, and so they just move right out that line.
That's the hard issue with some of this regulation stuff. Is if you make certain chemicals illegal, you're not making
a family of chemicals.
Yeah,
one.
And even if you did make the family of chemicals illegal, and they could find one that was a totally different family but had the same effect.
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
So how do you ever fix that? Like, what policy change do you implement?
You don't. You vote with your wallet.
Well, I've got a suggestion, but it's a hard one. I don't know if it's ever possible. But could you make an intention illegal? Could you say, like, it's anything that is a chemical that's going to reduce cost but puts people's lives in danger in any way is an illegal thing to do.
But the lives in danger is where the weak point
becomes like a legal concern.
Yeah, because in a courtroom, you can get anyone to say anything. You can find an expert that will tell you that BPA makes babies healthy. That happens all the time, and people are like, oh, and
no, you're right.
I promise you,
yeah.
In the courtroom, you basically like you're just swaying a jury, so you just need someone who's willing to get up there, tell you they're an expert, and they might be a statistical expert, and they might have actually done a study, and they might have p-hacked it, and have
you seen the John Oliver episode on? I don't know if you watched John Oliver ever, but
occasionally
he did an episode on forensic science. Did you see that? Oh my God.
Yeah, there's a whole thing right now with the FBI that like something like 300,000 or 30,000 cases.
Yeah.
Like basically one woman for 10 years at the FBI was just doing false positives to get convictions.
Well, there was the teeth one, right? I'm pretty sure that was the bite mark one. No? There was a dude in particular who has had like, I think hundreds of his cases overturned, but has helped convict like tens of thousands of people because he's a bite mark expert, and it turns out there's like no conclusive evidence that bite marks are a match of any kind. And several of these people could like literally be random people that they took out of society because they thought that a serial killer bit somebody or chewed into a ham sandwich, and then they found somebody with dental records that were a quote unquote exact match. But it's like nowhere near that kind of, even DNA evidence. They used to think fingerprints were one of a kind. Now it turns out they're not 1 in a million. They're like 5 or 6 in a million. And that means that you could easily get incorrect fingerprint analysis. So,
yeah, and the fingerprint
crazy.
analysis isn't, it's not 100%. You know, like when the FBI is doing a fingerprint comparison, they're not looking at like 100% match.
Yeah.
Because if they were looking for 100% match, it would take the computer a million years to search all of the fingerprints. So they're searching like certain data points, and you always see it in the TV shows. Like
it's like one little piece of it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and there's like 10 circles, and they're all lined.
Yeah,
the line
yeah.
connects all the circles together and stuff, and that's a good representation of the data. But it really is like
So they're not even comparing a
making
fingerprint to a
approximations.
fingerprint. They're
Yeah.
comparing like one piece of a fingerprint to another piece of a fingerprint. If those two match, then
and that's a very interesting thing. So you have
the
data.
point is that science and anyone, specifically people who represent themselves in the court as an expert, are not necessarily so. But that still is very swaying to a jury, which is the reason that they will even be in there. Yeah,
which is the main argument against the death penalty. I don't argue against the death penalty because death is a whole thing. We got death all wrong in this society. So I don't advocate for the death penalty in any regard whatsoever. But in our current justice system, there's no guarantee that dude actually did it. There's no guarantee. Zero. And especially in those like kind of like crazy weird cases like that. So
and very rarely is there like direct video evidence of a crime or something like that. It's all usually a lot of expert testimony around forensic evidence and so on and so forth, and that's all still sort of out to the jury.
Yeah, and crime is mostly based on people's financial situations and upbringing, which is based on
it's more complicated.
Corporal punishment might prevent some crime to some extent, but it's not the reason. It's treating the symptom and not the cause. So.
Yeah, you're killing the horse before you're touching the cart.
Yeah, exactly. Killed that horse. Why? So I could beat it.
Now I can beat a dead horse.
So anyway, back to water bottles. So the real big issues with water and water bottling is, number one, you are paying a lot of money for that bottle of water.
Yeah.
$1.50 for something that would cost you like 0.005, half a penny. Probably like out of your faucet.
Yeah.
So in some cases, 10,000 is the number they always quote, 10,000% or 10,000 times more money for the water in a bottle. And then there are plenty of stories of places, people, companies like Coca-Cola and Nestle coming into a place and drilling a hole deeper than the town's well and sucking up all the water. Then the entire, no, they don't leave. They're just sucking it up, and then the entire town is dried up, and then they're forced to buy the water.
Right.
And Nestle will be like, and then they turn around and they turn into a positive PR campaign because they have video of them handing out water bottles, and they're like, "Look at us giving water to these people who have no water. Yep. We're not going to tell you that we're the ones who stole the water."
Flint, Michigan's a great example because there was so much corrosive lead poisoning in all of the water supply, but that part of that was because they gave so many tax breaks to Nestle and several other water companies who didn't do a great job. The tax money ended up not going back into the infrastructure to prevent lead poisoning, like is exactly what happened. And then people donated hundreds of millions of dollars to buy what? Bottled water to send there in lieu of them fucking it up. It's a win-win either way. This is a kind of a common story for corporations.
The Flint, Michigan story was interesting because they were in the process of switching sources, was basically the idea. And as part of that switch, they were cutting corners and they didn't include the chemical in the water that kept the pipes from falling apart. So like it was probably not good, and that chemical is not good for you either. But essentially it was a situation which was sustainable. And then they made a couple of bad moves, and it was just a domino.
And fell apart.
Just fell apart. So.
But Nestle and the bottled water companies and anyone who was involved in water pumping there still made out a killing.
Yeah, and the only prosecutions that have come from that have been like the town leader, a couple like 10 people from the town, or they
still don't have clean water.
What do you call it?
These motherfuckers council. Over in Michigan right now in our country still do not have clean water coming out.
Yeah, and it's an all too common story.
Yeah.
So, and then that is, you're paying too much for your water when it comes out of a bottle. The bottle has chemicals in it which leach into your water. You definitely can't leave the water in the sunshine for very long, or else you are going to turn the frogs gay. And then the really big one actually is the trash. So
and
the water bottle is made of oil. Like literally, plastic is made from
petroleum,
oil. Yeah. Although it is possible to make plastic from a plant, and it's a little better.
Yeah.
It's definitely like a little bit more renewable, but That's where a lot of the cost is coming from, is turning your oil into a water bottle. And then afterwards, most water bottles get thrown away. Only 22% end up recycled. And then it turns out that, only like 20% of the 20% that get thrown in the recycle bin actually really get recycled. And the vast majority of it gets shipped to China or India and ends up in a giant pile where it will later be melted down and downcycled into something probably even more worse. And then it will get thrown away. So
what can we do?
Drink water from your own container.
Yeah. Carry a water bottle.
Carry a water bottle. Don't be afraid of your tap.
Yeah.
Look up all municipal water sources are tested quite often. Most of them are reasonably safe. I don't drink water in a small bottle, but I do get water sent to my house I drink Indian Peaks water, which is the glacier above Netherland, because I'm a snob and because I know the guy. I met the guy like 15 years ago or something.
So you buy like jugs of water?
Yeah. And I just
how much is it?
I support. He's just a local business. Yeah. It's $8 for 5 gallons.
For a 5 gallon jug. Yeah. How many water bottles, full nice water bottles, do you think out of a 5 gallon jug? Guess.
Well, a liter bottle would be 16, right?
Yeah, I guess.
No, it's 5 times 4.
More than that.
20.
20. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So $8 for 20 bottles of water.
20 big bottles of water.
20 big old bottles, rather than if you got them for $2 or whatever.
Yeah, but I do that because I have my opinions on fluoride.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, fluoride in your toothpaste is a completely different chemical than the fluoride that's in your water.
You're also not ingesting it.
The fluoride, yeah, exactly. And the fluoride that's in your water is scrubbed out of a power plant's emissions.
Yeah.
And then trucked down the street and pumped into your water, and it destroys the pipes that put it into the water.
Yeah, but so look it up. Look at your own municipal water supply. Not everyone has fluoride anymore. That is something that lots of different cities opt out of. So go and check it out for yourself.
Yeah, and there is a really interesting court case with a woman whose horses. I wish I knew her name off the top of my head, but she was able to take the local water supply people to court and say that fluoride killed her horses. And
she won?
Yeah, she did, but it was like a long battle, and you could tell that there were like high up forces who didn't want that news getting out, and they were pumping money into her opposition. So it's a really interesting story. I wish I remembered her name.
Should have settled with her. She probably didn't want to, but
yeah. And the thing about like most things, fluoride that's a perfect case of the person coming to into court pretending to be an expert or being an expert and like not knowing what they're talking about, whatever. And they up there saying that like fluoride helps dental health. And then they have this study, look at every time we put fluoride into the water, everyone's teeth gets better. But you're talking about like all of this like other stuff happening as well. Like people start paying attention to their teeth. Like the idea that you have the infrastructure to put fluoride into the water means that you have existing water.
To like brush your teeth and shit.
Well, yeah, like these are people who have water pipes in their house, which means that they are on the up and up as far as society. They are coming up in the world. And so like that's where most of it, like if your water is getting better, then your food is getting better, your living situations are getting better, and these are people with better teeth. Like that's just like there's
plenty. It's a causation versus correlation argument.
Exactly. So, and this whole idea that sugar rots your teeth is a fallacy as well. Sugar doesn't rot your teeth. Sugar is an empty calorie. So
it depends on the kind of sugar. There are various artificial sweeteners that definitely will fuck your teeth up and cause decay. But there are various sugars that will not as well, and a certain balance of sugar is very important to your body, especially to your teeth.
Well, yeah, you do need sugar as a fuel, but the reason that people get tooth decay because they eat a lot of sugar is because they're eating sugar, which has very low nutritional content, and so your body, which is not getting enough nutritional content because you're stuffing yourself full of junk food, then turns to itself for the important sources. Like to keep your organs running, it needs calcium, and it starts leaching the calcium out of your bones and out of your teeth, which is why osteoporosis is such a huge deal, because you have all these people across the world who are eating bullshit food.
Yeah, it's interesting how much poor nutrition funds industries in America.
It's a cycle of death. Like you really have to get yourself off the treadmill. And that's the whole thing.
Well, it's not easy, especially if you don't have money.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the water bottles. None of it gets recycled, really. Even if you think you're recycling, you're probably not. And all of that ends up in the waste stream or in the ocean and all of those terrible things. Sorry, I'm a fiddler. I always have been. Surprised you can't hear it even with the headphones on and amplifying that stuff. Oh wait, let's dig up. Yeah, what's up, Rich? I know Rich is in there being like, this motherfucker ruined up my shit.
I slapped it out of his hands.
So these are but we got some bottled water facts here, and this is from
Tell us about bottled
2007. I couldn't find any, but like anything like really new. But did I start this up? I did. Making bottles to meet America's demand for bottled water uses more than 17 million barrels of oil annually, enough to fuel 1.3 million cars for a year, and that's not even including the oil used for transportation.
Damn.
Yeah, and back
just to move water.
Yeah, it actually. The demand for water in a bottle is a marketing campaign from the bottling companies because people were starting to figure out that soda is not healthy for you, and they started backing off on soda. And they were like, "Well, how are we going to make money?" We've done all this market research, and we're pretty sure that the maximum amount of bottles we can sell is like 6 bottles per week per person, maximum. So we're reaching that soon. So what are we going to do if we want to make more money? And they're like, we have to find something else to bottle. And then all of a sudden, less people are drinking soda. And they're like, oh my God. So then like, well, let's just bottle water. It's higher profit margin for us, less work. And so they put out all these PR campaigns about how local water is worse. It's bad for you. Let's get some nice, healthy, filtered bottled water. And it's from a spring, and they lie and all this stuff. And I forgot what the point of that was.
Don't buy bottled water.
Well, that's the point of the whole podcast.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was all this. It was just a marketing campaign because they were starting to lose market share, and it was all based on pretty much non-factual stuff. So
and money and making more money and increasing their market. I mean, that's like we said. This is an age-old story for corporations.
Yeah, totally.
So if you're somebody that wants to campaign for water rights, what's something you can do?
I'm all about personal stuff. Like, you know, like when it comes to anything, I'm always going to drive it back to the individual. Vote with your dollar. Don't be the victim. Get into your personal power, you know, exercise, eat right, all of those things. Like it makes it, you know, it doesn't sound like you're having a direct effect, but it's you, it's the people you interact with, you know, can tell people that it's bad. You know, like that's, I want to like, I'm really thinking seriously about some sort of like campaign of like, I want to have like a big event where like if you don't show up with a cup, you're screwed. You drink out of somebody else's cup. I'm not going to give you a cup if you come to my venue.
It'd be a cool concept, I think, if you had a party where you had to bring your own plate and your own silverware and your own cup, and you also had to, like, because they're yours, you're either taking them home dirty or you can wash them there.
Yeah, I think it's a super fun idea.
And then not only that, but it cuts down on costs of the event.
Yeah.
So then the event
if you need a cup, we'll have like a good reusable cup there, you know, like a sticker station or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So that's totally, but yeah, it's all about individual responsibility.
Yeah.
Are we done at 2:30? Are we already 15 minutes over?
No. We're 15 minutes till. It's 3 o'clock. You started at 2. It's been 45 minutes.
I looked down and I panicked.
You're in good time, Sampson. Everything is perfect.
The energy waste using bottled water would be enough to power 190,000 homes.
Damn, that's like per year?
I don't know. I was going to say, there's not enough units there for that to be real
measurable.
I could go down to the...
I'm sure all this stuff can be looked up by our audience.
Not disposable anymore. POV's borders. I don't know what that is in 2004, but that's according to PBS, apparently.
Huh.
Last year, the average American used 167 disposable water bottles, but only recycled 38.
I mean, I think about how guilty of that I am. Like, I think of my own life. Like, how many water bottles that I just pick up and trash without recycling? Oh, yeah, that sounds about right.
Dude, I drink a ton of juice in a bottle. I'm just as guilty as anyone.
Yeah,
I just
juice
don't
in a
drink water.
bottle. I try to drink water out of water bottles now, like especially because my lover friend Euthymia is just fantastic at carrying around a water bottle and going to Burning Man with you. For some reason, I came back and I'm like, I can't do it. Can't drink plastic bottled water. And even if I do, I try and use that bottle like 3 or 4 times. I refill it, you know, a couple times a day, and then try and recycle it. But I'm still fucking terrible at that.
Yeah, I've just never found a bottle that I could really attach myself to. But I have a cup at work. I have a bunch.
Like a water bottle, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, find one. Like, look online for one get like a fancy one. Get a snobby one. Like, you know, it keeps your water cold and I don't know, never corrodes.
For my fancy water.
Fancy water.
Well, I mean, I at work and I have like 5 or 6 hard plastic cups like all over the place. So I'm never more than like 10 feet from something, and we have. I'm drinking bottled water.
See, I'm the opposite.
Too, but it's just Deep Rock, which is Denver tap water. Yeah, it's filtered to some extent.
Exactly, yeah. Well, I have my own water bottle, and I'm running around all the time with it because...
Yeah, and you move around. So.
I'm constantly moving, so I need it. And also, if I'm in the day and I don't have a water bottle, you know, I have to go and buy a bottle of water, and that fucking sucks. It sucks so much to like realize at the end of the day I spent $7 at 3 different locations buying a bottle of water.
But that's why, okay, the one issue I have, I was going to say, like, buy the half-gallon jug, you know, always. Because it's less plastic per
Yeah, you're right.
water.
You should. I've seen you.
And
I've seen
it'll
you with
last
that.
all day.
Yeah.
But the problem is that, like, the big jugs are always the water that tastes the worst. Like, you go in a gas station, it's always like, what's the Arrowhead or whatever? Well, that stuff is not for me. I'm kind of snobby water. When I am forced, like,
You like good tasting water.
yeah, I like the Pepsi no, what is it? Aquafina.
Aquafina.
Yeah, of all the bottled waters, I'm always like, I don't know, something about Aquafina tastes better to me. But I avoid that.
It's kind of weird they even taste different.
Possible. Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people, they're like putting stuff in there, which isn't really necessary.
Yeah.
Americans used about 50 billion plastic water bottles last year, which would have been 2006.
Holy shit.
However, the U.S. recycling rate for plastic is only 23%, which means 38 billion water bottles.
What percentage of a plastic water bottle that gets recycled is fully recycled? Is 100% of a plastic water bottle get turned into plastic?
That's the whole thing. Recycling is a thing. Like recycling, there's recycling, which is turning it back into the same thing. There's upcycling, which turns it into a better, more useful thing, and downcycling, which is a least useful thing. Like most water bottles are going to get turned into carpet.
So it sort of downcycled?
Which then your carpet will get thrown away because you can't recycle carpet.
Damn.
So it's not really recyclable. It's downcyclable.
Shit.
And even then, you're looking at 20% of 20%.
Man, fuck us.
Yeah, so 20 bottles out of 100 go to the recycling, and then 1/5 of that would be 4 bottles would actually get downcycled.
Well, Americans, stop drinking bottled water.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Stop being a lazy fuck. And I'm talking to myself, really.
Yeah,
ultimately.
and you're pumping. Like the thing is, you're pumping money into the people's pockets who have anything but your good intentions.
Yeah, they don't care about us, man. They don't care. They don't really care about us.
So the recommended 8 glasses of water per day for the average tap cost is 49 cents per year.
What?
Yeah.
Per year?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So it should cost you 50 cents to drink water.
A year.
A year.
But you probably spent at least $100, $200, $300 on random plastic bottles of water.
Yep.
Shit. We're just feeding the system, people. What are we doing? What are we doing?
Oh, antimony, which is found in PET plastic bottles. Oh, I always remember what PET meant. In small doses can cause dizziness, depression. Large doses can cause nausea, vomiting, and death.
Well, don't die. You don't want that.
Hey, if you're not busy later, maybe you could not die.
Not die. Good luck with that.
One water pitcher can effectively replace as much as 300 standard 16.9 ounce bottles, so you can get great tasting water without so much waste. Talk about refreshing. I love these talking points.
They come with like their own little news headline.
The average water pitcher, so I'm sure we're talking about Brita's, the idea there, filters 240 gallons of water a year for effectively about 19 cents a day. The same amount of bottled water would require 1,818 bottles.
So that's the argument.
Cost of a bottle, that's $5 a day.
Yeah, so that's the argument that even if you really want filtered water, like buy a water filter.
Yeah, your Brita will cost you 20 cents a day.
Yeah.
The bottled water will cost you $5 a day.
Jesus.
Right?
$5 a day doesn't sound like a lot, but it is.
Yeah.
It is.
And your $10 Nalgene will save you hundreds of dollars a year. That's not a very specific stat, but on that note, being hydrated will change your life.
Yeah, water is the bomb. I'm getting thirsty now as we talk about it.
Yeah, I had a glass of water.
We're fucking up.
That's retarded. We're doing a show on water, and we don't even have any water on the table.
Yeah.
My God.
We're the problem, everyone. We are the problem. Look introspectively.
This is Nothing Explained, and if you need any more evidence that you should not be taking us seriously or credible, it is the fact that we have a water podcast and we're not even drinking water.
Not even drinking water. My lips are chapped. I had this terrible sickness. I feel like I'm going to talk about this now because it has to do with water. And my throat would get so dry at night, and I would have to sit with, I literally would fill up like 3 different bottles of water and put them next to my bed, go through all 3 of them, and in the morning wake up with just like the driest throat and chapped lips. It's like my body's not taking water. Like I'm finally getting over it, but oh God, it was the worst. So I'm feeling some chappedness now, and I'm like, no, I don't want to get sick anymore. I need to drink more water. So drink water, stay hydrated.
The onset for dehydration for me is like this kind of like scratchiness in the top and back of my nose and the back of my throat. Yeah, water will change your life. Drinking, there's some good videos on, just go to YouTube and just type in a gallon a day. And there's tons and tons of people who just, for 30 days drink a gallon of water a day. And most of them are like, oh, I'm going to keep doing it. This is amazing.
Yeah.
You'll probably lose weight. Mm-hmm. And that's actually a really important thing to understand is that early on when you're hydrating, like the first couple days of whatever, of like, I'm going to try and drink more water, your body's you're going to gain weight because your body's going to hold on to that water because your body is used to being in a deprivation state.
Yeah.
It's essentially like, I don't know when I'm going to get more water, so hang on to it as long as you possibly can. Mm-hmm. And as soon as the body is like, holy shit, it's like, there's water everywhere, I think we're good. All of a sudden it starts kickstarting all of these things and it will just start basically beforehand it would have been using like, let's say a cup of water to filter out your kidneys. It's like, oh shit, I can use 3 cups of water. And that whole process is way more energy efficient, leaving way more energy for like you know, daily use and stuff. Mm-hmm. And like, that's when your body starts to tune up because now the parts per million of toxins in your whole blood, in your whole body, all those things start dropping to much, much lower levels because you're giving your more of what your kidneys, the filters in your body need to clean your body out.
Not to mention more of what it needs to make blood.
Yeah.
So that's going to be more blood, which means less toxins per the amount of blood you've got in your body.
You'll sleep better. You'll be less tired at work. I was like, what? I just had it in my head.
You'll be able to, you'll be more nutritionally fed too because you eat food and being hydrated are correlated in terms of.
And that's an interesting point. Being that water is, in its most purest form, is a free item, you know? Like no one is out there, like Nestle couldn't say our water is better than Pepsi's water because there's no proof of that, you know, and they can't make any sort of like health claims to like help sell their help sell their product. You know, they can't say our water is better than your water, and then they probably couldn't even say drinking more water will make you healthier because the FDA can come after you. But even though that's true, but the FDA hasn't done like all of the testing and stuff because there's no like. Water is just, it's one of those, it's like, it's free. So there's no like commercial backdrop to that whole situation. But I think it's interesting because we're here making health claims about drinking more water. And if we were making health claims about any sort of commercial product, that opens the door for us to be sued. You know, if
it's just our opinion.
Health claims haven't been backed up. Like for example, CBD.
Yeah.
If you run it, CBD is legal 100% in all states. And if you make some sort of health claim that CBD does something good, you can be sued by FDA and SEC for making claims on this financial product that have not been backed up because nobody on the planet can afford to spend the $5 million for all these FDA testing and stuff. So it is interesting that we're like pushing water as a health.
Drink water.
Oh my God, I'm so thirsty. I am really thirsty.
Yeah,
good thing we only got 5 minutes late. I'm going to sprint for the tap. I don't know what this is going to... Dr. Gina Solomon, a senior scientist at the Natural Resource Defense Council, an environmental advocacy group, told the New York Times that there's no reason to believe that bottled water is safer than tap water. And that has stood the test of time.
I'm sure it did.
I did see a pH test, and the only of the 5 I saw tested, the only thing that passed was Aquafina.
Passed what?
No.
Like a...
Fiji. Which is a Hawaiian aquifer, and it probably is like a decent filtering, like a natural filtering situation. And pH is an interesting thing with water. Like it's important to keep your body pH balanced, and most of the water you're drinking is a little bit acidic. So you should be doing things that alkalinize your body.
Like what, Sampson?
Well, interestingly, citrus fruits being acidic in nature, they are alkalinizing. So drinking like a little lemon in your water is always a good idea. But the best I've found is grapes and raisins.
Nice.
Yeah. So if you want to alkalinize your body, which is always a good idea, grapes and raisins.
Grape it up.
Grape. Super grape. How you feeling? Super grape. Which is interesting. I saw a study recently saying that grapes is one of the most anti-cancer foods on the planet, which is interesting because there's lots of studies coming out now that cancer is in an acidic environment. It thrives in acidic environments. And so to be said that grapes are alkalinizing, and apparently they didn't connect the two studies are deeply not connected. Grapes are alkalinizing. Grapes are very good against cancer. Maybe they're related.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, went too far. And In the U.S., public water is regulated by the Environmental Protection Agency, which requires multiple daily tests for bacteria and makes results available to the public. The Food and Drug Administration, which regulates bottled water, only requires weekly testing and does not share its finding with the EPA or the public.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah. And most bottled water, the companies, they don't have to replete. It's a private company, so they don't have to say what they're doing.
They just have it so that if they do get sued or somebody says something, then they could say, well, we did this testing and this was the result.
And it's in your best interest to do testing because you don't want something bad going out the door because they're putting out millions of bottles a day, so they could knock out an entire city if they're not careful.
That's not good.
Yeah, so
that's really scary to think about too.
Yeah, I mean, they have a room full of lawyers which is being like, yes, test the water. Please God, test the water. So you know that they're testing it, but even if they're and
then there's a capitalist at the top like, how often do we really need to test the water? And the lawyer's like, weekly.
Yeah, so there's a statistician who's saying, what are the chances that we're going to get burned on this, and where do we find the gray line between how much we should test versus what are the chances of us
That's how you know capitalism is bullshit, is that you always are towing the line between how much money can we make and can we make this safe for people. There's always like the two things, trying to just walk that line as well as you can.
Yeah. Stupid. But the moral of the story is, if you're not comfortable with your tap water, you're probably wrong.
But check, it's public information, so go and check.
Yeah, and if you're in any kind of like reasonably urban environment, I don't want to say urban, but somewhat civilized, which is going to be the vast majority of the United States.
If you're in a city,
your local water district is publishing their tests, on very frequently.
You can test it yourself too. You can buy a water test kit and test your water at home and see how it is. Don't just assume it's not good.
Yeah, and there are places you can take your water and you can send it in the mail and they'll send you the results back. And I've lived in houses where the local water board was sending me the test results on a fancy little flyer on a monthly basis or quarterly basis or whatever. But yeah, bottled water is not better for you.
No. It's probably worse for you, and it could make frogs gay. But I don't trust Alex Jones in particular, so you have to go look it up for somewhere who's not maybe InfoWars.
It's only making the frogs gay in places where sunlight is breaking the plastic down, which is the vast majority of the surface of the ocean.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and if you want to be really horrified and you don't know this already, look up the plastic floating island. Just Google plastic.
Yeah, that's a real thing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's scary. Oh boy, I'm waiting for that Futurama episode to come to real life where they shoot the ball of plastic and trash into space because there's not enough room anymore on the planet for trash, and then it comes back as an asteroid to kill us. Have you seen that episode?
No, did it run around the sun?
Yeah, they shoot the plastic ball of trash into space, thinking that we don't have any room for it anymore. It was like a barge. It was like the New York dumpster barge or something like that. So they shoot it into space, and then 100 years later or something like that, it comes back. It circles a planet. It does like a slingshot they weren't expecting. Comes back down to Earth, and it's like a huge threat. Anyway, just waiting for that to become the truth.
Well, to finish things up, I just remembered you saying something in space and flying around. Reminded me that one of the other big things this week that I don't know how much mainstream attention it got. I'm sure people following science blogs and stuff did, but this week we saw the first, at least public admission of an interstellar object entering the solar system and exiting, meaning that everything we see, comets, asteroids, all of these things that we experience anytime someone's talking about, we had a near miss with an asteroid, or hey, there's a comet going to be in the sky, let's go out and skywatch. All of those things are native to our solar system. Most of the comets and stuff are coming from the Oort cloud, which is this giant kind of ring, kind of spherical ball around in the outer reaches of our solar system where all this stuff is coming from, and all the gravity pulls of all of the planets on the exterior are yanking these things and kind of throwing them in. Right. And in fact, if it weren't for Jupiter, which is basically this giant gravitic shield, which is
magnetic shield.
Yeah, it's throwing them all back out.
Yeah,
essentially. And without Jupiter, the Earth would have been just
lit up,
devastated hundreds of times over. But anyway, everything we've ever seen in the sky, at least publicly acknowledged in the sky, has been local. But now, and I think it was A217 or AU217.
I haven't heard this. Interesting.
But yeah, the interesting thing is, so we're on the disk, right? And this running around the sun, but we're actually traveling around the galaxy, a plate going like this.
Yeah.
And so this object came in from basically above us, and I haven't actually looked at if they've really analyzed the physics to like, oh, it was just gravity that threw it around. I've seen some, people.
But it did like a curve through our system.
But yeah, like at least if it wasn't a smart, intelligent object, it came into the solar system and the gravity of our solar system shot it out. But it came from away and it went right back out again. It was traveling at something like a couple thousand meters per second or something like that. Which is fast. This is kind of a meaningless number in terms of space.
Yeah.
I can't even really quantify that. But,
no one can with our pathetic human mind.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The first time we've registered an interstellar object.
Sure not the last.
Oh, definitely not. And I'm sure it's not actually the first. That's dumb. We've had radar for so long.
I couldn't tell you.
You know, when we first flipped on radar, there was so much stuff flying around in space at 300 miles that they dialed the radar down to 20 miles because they didn't want to have to answer questions. They were just like, we don't know. That's too big of a deal. Let's just not worry about it. Because space is full of stuff.
Yeah,
it's
it
totally
is definitely full of stuff.
Space is not empty. That is a fallacy.
Yeah.
All right, well, anyway, this has been the Nothing Explained. I did an excellent job of explaining nothing as usual. Pretty good. Thank you for joining me, Ryan.
Yeah.
Big up to Miles in the booth, who's doing video stuff. Big up to Rich for hosting us here at the Ghost House Studios. For all your studio recording needs, I support your choice of using Ghost House Studios.
Yes. Come and check it out. Otherwise, check out all the other cool podcasts on the WeAreDenver podcast network.
Yeah, coming up next is Boom Bap Tricks. And next week will be our final week of the season. And we're going to take a break for the holidays. And we'll get back at the first of the year.
New and improved.
Yeah, we're gonna take our game up a notch.
Yeah.
I'm stoked. Let's take it up a notch.
About to level up.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you guys for joining us.
Cheers. See you on the outside.